Let's jump right in. We usually treat modern science and ancient spirituality like they're totally different languages, right? But what if they're actually describing the exact same reality, just from completely different angles? In today's Explainer, we're diving into a really mind-bending way to look at the evolution of life. We're going to compare the physical, nuts and bolts mechanics of Charles Darwin with the deep, consciousness-driven framework mapped out in the Bhagwad Gita. Think about this for a second. Science tells us DNA runs the show. But if literally every living thing on Earth is made of the exact same 5 physical elements, space, air, fire, water, and earth, why do we have such incredibly different temperaments? Like, why is a tiger just inherently violent, while a cow is naturally compassionate? Why is a rat always so restless, but an elephant, radiates this profound wisdom? DNA completely explains the claws or the brain size, sure, but what explains that inner drive?
Well, this is where things get super interesting. Modern science says life is totally governed by genetics, an outer biological blueprint. But the ancient philosophy of Vedanta? It argues something way deeper. Vedanta says the real engine of life isn't your physical body at all. It's the subtle body. In Hindi, it's called the Sukshma Sharira. Basically, it's the invisible software running quietly behind the scenes of your physical hardware. To really wrap our heads around this ancient concept, let's use something we all have in our pockets right now. A smartphone. Think of your gross physical body, the flesh and bone, as the actual phone handset. That's the hardware. The subtle body, though, the part that travels, that's your SIM card. When you die, the physical handset basically dissolves back into those 5 elements. But the SIM card, the part holding your mind, your ego, your deepest impressions, that survives the crash. It's ready for the next phase. And just like you'd pop that SIM card out of a shattered old phone and slide it into a brand new one, all while staying connected to your cellular network, like 5G or whatever, the subtle body sheds worn-out bodies and drops into new ones. The Bhagavad Gita actually uses this exact kind of analogy in Chapter 2, verse 22, comparing it to taking off old clothes and putting on new ones. And the overarching network providing your coverage? That is Ishvara, or Supreme Consciousness. The SIM stays exactly the same, you just get a device upgrade or, well, a downgrade.
Now, how many device models are we talking about on this network? Get this, 8.4 million. And what's wild is both ancient Hindu philosophy and modern scientific estimates roughly agree on this massive number. There are 8.4 million species out there. So, sticking with our analogy, that's 8.4 million different mobile device models your SIM card can potentially occupy, all based on its underlying programming.
So, the million-dollar question, what exactly is coded onto this SIM card? What determines if you get the absolute latest high-end flagship or some obsolete basic model? According to the texts, this subtle structure is built on exactly 24 elements mathematically. They're called tattvas. This is the exact code that dictates your next destination. Let's look under the hood at this invisible software. The 24 tattvas start with those 5 gross elements we talked about earlier. Then you add 10 organs, 5 for action, 5 for perception. Add in the 5 objects of the senses like sight, smell, and taste, and we're at 20. The last 4, and these are the big ones that actually shape your consciousness, are the mind, the intellect, the ego, and the unmanifest. That exact 24-part recipe makes up the complete traveling package of your soul. The major takeaway here is that jumping between species isn't just some random biological accident. Your soul's trajectory is totally driven by this software, which carries all your accumulated past, present, and future karmas. Science is always asking how a species physically changes. Vedanta asks why a specific soul gets a specific body. And the answer is samskaras, those deep, subtle impressions and desires left over from everything you've ever done.
Now we get to the absolute core operating code of the Bhagavad Gita, the 3 gunas. You can think of these as the primary settings steering your consciousness. First up is sattva. Sattva is the code for pure intelligence, compassion, and wisdom. When your subtle body is heavily loaded with sattva, it naturally gravitates toward higher-level forms. We see this in humans, obviously, but also in incredibly smart animals like dolphins, elephants, and sometimes dogs or cows that show just unbelievable empathy and understanding.
Then there's rajas. This is the code for action, deep restlessness, and constant motion. If your software is dominated by rajas, your journey is fueled by desires, fears, and just an endless need to do things. Picture a rat constantly scurrying around just trying to survive, or birds that never seem to stop darting around. That restless energy? That is the physical manifestation of the rajas guna at work. Finally, we have tamas. Tamas is all about inertia.
dullness, sleepiness, delusion. When tamas dominates the subtle body, consciousness gets super clouded and lethargic. The sources give the fascinating example of a snake that spends massive chunks of its life simply sleeping, or even plants and trees, literally rooted to one spot in complete, unmoving inertia. Those forms are perfect physical expressions of a tamasic state of consciousness.
And here is why this is absolutely crucial. These gunas aren't just quirky personality traits. They literally determine your soul's destiny. Chapter 14 of the Gita explains that whatever guna dominates your mind at the exact moment of death, that dictates your next device. Die rooted in sattva, and your SIM card goes to a higher, purer realm or an advanced species. Die in rajas, you're reborn into an action-oriented body. If tamas is running the show, the soul gets downgraded into a lower, diluted species locked in inertia.
When you put these two frameworks side by side, it is just brilliant. Charles Darwin and modern genetics, they map out the evolution of the hardware. They show how the physical, biological forms adapt over time. But the Bhagwad Gita is mapping out the evolution of consciousness and karmic intelligence, the software. They are looking at the exact same truth, just from completely different dimensions.
It all comes down to the mechanisms of change. Science watches physical gene pools and random genetic mutations driving a fish to become a reptile and then a bird. But Vedanta watches the subtle karmic impressions, those samskaras, and the mix of gunas precisely carving out our destiny. Like science really struggles to explain why identical twins with the exact same DNA can have completely opposite temperaments. One is super compassionate, the other is relentlessly restless. Vedanta has the perfect answer. The hardware is identical, but their invisible software, their gunas, are totally different.
So, what is the ultimate endgame here? Are we just supposed to keep upgrading this spiritual hardware for millions of lifetimes, endlessly swapping devices? Well, no. The text gives us this profound answer in chapter 14, verse 20. It says that anyone who rises beyond all three of these gunas becomes free from birth, death, old age, and sorrow, and attains immortality.
See, the ultimate goal of existence isn't just snagging a better biological body. It's not even about becoming human and just stopping there. The true objective is to transcend the whole cycle entirely. To pull that off, you have to silence the mind, purify the intellect, dissolve the ego, and break completely from sattva, rajas, and tamas. You basically have to step outside the source code itself. I want to leave you with this final, really profound thought. Once it clicks that you are fundamentally not your DNA, that you are not this temporary piece of physical hardware, but actually the eternal consciousness moving through countless births, it honestly changes everything. The ultimate goal isn't the next device upgrade. The goal is to merge right back into supreme consciousness. So, as you reflect on that invisible software running your life today, ask yourself, are you ready to transcend the cycle?